Welcome back to the channel, folks. This video is going to be a little bit different because there is something that I really want to dive into, and it's going to be sort of a behind the scenes / inside baseball type of topic, because it's going to be about how my experience has been with starting my business in Germany. People often joke about German bureaucracy being a bit of a national sport, and to be honest, they're really not wrong. It's not far from the truth at all. From registering your car to getting your residence permit, and as I've found out, just trying to register your own business online, everything is going to involve some kind of a labyrinth of paperwork. So many different procedures, things like different regulatory commissions and government offices. For those of you who've kept up with the previous videos, you know that we are expanding our horizons on the channel. We are going big. Might even be going international. And it's led us to the very next method of online money making I'll be trying on this channel. So if you too are thinking about starting your own business in Germany, strap in, because I'm going to be detailing the journey that lays ahead of you. First and foremost, everything takes so long, and I mean everything. Government offices here operate at an absolute snail's pace. Things that should be really simple processes, even automated processes like filling in an online application, sending in an online form. These things you think they could be done in minutes, but they often require some kind of physical mail to be sent back and forth, and that slows things down every single time. It always results in days or even weeks of waiting regardless of what you're doing. So if you're planning anything, always expect it to take 3 times as long. But why is Germany so tied to physical mail? Who in the world is still using mail? Well, Germany, and there's actually quite a few reasons why it is that way. I'll tell you about some of them. Why in the world does Germany love its physical mail so much? You would think in 2024 it could just be sent as an email. Well, the main reason is actually because digital communication is not considered legally binding in Germany. So any sort of email that you receive, any sort of digital signature or approval that you provide is actually not legally binding to the full extent a physical copy of that paper would be, which you then sign and then mail to somebody. And that's why so many legal and bureaucratic processes will require you to send in a physical signature, to have you actually sign a piece of paper and then mail it to them. This is just something that keeps reinforcing the German need to physically handle documents in this day and age. Despite that, I actually am one of the lucky ones in that I live in Berlin, where there actually is an online process for where you can register your business without having to go to the government offices myself personally or sending mail back and forth. Despite the sign-up process being entirely digital and completed in minutes, it still took over 3 days to just receive a single acknowledgement email that my documents and my application was even received. That's not 3 days to process the application, that's 3 days to acknowledge that you even sent something. So that's even after I paid a $15 application fee and you just hear nothing at all. I even thought their process was broken and I got scammed for my money. But no, they're just that slow. At that point, I may as well just have sent the physical mail. It would have arrived at the exact same speed. It's honestly pretty ridiculous that there isn't even an email that automatically responds with at least an acknowledgement of your application. And that's just the very first step of registering your business legally. The second step will be with yet another institution you will be dealing with, and that is the tax authority. You have to register yourself for tax purposes, which makes sense, of course. And this too can be done completely online, which is great, of course, but the response you'll be getting back from them is again physical. You will be receiving a physical mail response to the entirely digital application you sent out. Now, I completed this application several weeks ago, and the current estimate of when you're going to receive a response can range from anywhere between several weeks to several months. In fact, I think the highest bar is you can wait up to 4 months to even receive a response. And now that is the first 2 institutions that you will be dealing with. and there's going to be several more depending on the type of business you will conduct. There is a pretty high chance that you will be forcibly registered for one of several other commissions. For instance, in my case, it's pretty likely that I will be forced to join the IHK, which is the Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And this forced membership is of course not free. You will be paying extra membership fees on this as well. But since you are paying membership fees to all of this, there has to be some kind of a benefit for you, right? So you are being forced to become a member of this chamber. What do you get out of it? Well, if you run a pretty standard sort of trade type of business, you might be, a roofer or a plumber or perhaps an electrician, the chamber does run these seminars, which very well could have something useful in them for you. But if you're running any sort of non-standard business, there's going to be very little of value that they can offer you. And that's why the membership to this chamber is also jokingly referred to as the most expensive magazine subscription in Germany. All of this leads into the greater topic. Why is it so difficult to start a business in Germany? Every single step that you would like to take seems to have a dozen sub-steps that you have to do for regulatory purposes. Where is this German efficiency that we keep getting told about? The reason things are the way they are boils down to a couple of reasons. Number one is the laws here are just old and haven't kept pace with modern business practices. Another example of another old law that is also still affecting me is actually paragraph 18 of the income tax laws, which is what defines what is legally a business and who is legally a freelancer, because those are some very important distinctions in German law. And it's yet another thing that is handled so differently here in Germany than in the rest of the world. The difference between independent work and what is freelance. And that's the case because the term freelancer actually doesn't exist in the German law. And that's because this law is from 1934 and has been changed very little since. It's a law that's pre-internet, pre-e-commerce, and pre any type of modern business, yet it still completely affects all of them. In fact, on the application where I had to register my business, I had to describe it. So after a bit of Googling, I realized I had to describe my business like it was still 1934. I used terms that I've probably never used in my life to describe what I was doing, so somebody from 1934 could understand what I'm doing. You would think that one of these days they would try and modernize some of their own laws, but they haven't. There's just so much bureaucratic red tape surrounding the whole thing that almost nothing has changed for 100 years. And now you might be starting to understand why things are the way they are here. There is also just a very slow adoption of modern technology from what you would think is a modern and 21st century country. Partly because there just is no strong incentive for things to change. And that's not just because all of it is buried under a mountain of old customs and good old-fashioned bureaucracy. Here's a good example of what I mean by that. Take for instance the company Telekom. It's a previously state-owned telecommunications company and is still, since being privatized, the largest in the country. And its main interest since privatization is of course maintaining its own market dominance. It did this by doing anything and everything in its power to prevent the upgrade and modernization of Germany's telecommunications networks. And because of this, the good old copper network that they installed decades ago remains the only viable option. That's right, copper wiring is still being used here instead of something like a fiber connection. In fact, those are still incredibly rare in Germany in 2024. The whole country is incredibly behind when it comes to the infrastructure for telecommunications and especially internet. And all of these reasons together starts to paint a pretty comprehensive picture of why Germany is the way it is today. Alright, so that was a ton of complaining. But what country is perfect, right? But also, surely things will be starting to get better soon, right? Well, actually, there is hope on the horizon. Europe as a whole is pushing for increased digitization. The European Commission has launched an ambitious plan called the Digital Decade, which is supposed to successfully digitize European infrastructure by 2030. If you ask me if I think that this is going to solve things around here, I am going to have to be a bit skeptical. 2025 is coming up pretty quick, so we're already almost past the halfway mark of the decade. Some things have already improved for sure. For instance, I could submit my documents online without having to bust out the pen and paper. But I sure as heck don't think that 5 years will be enough to undo decades worth of bureaucracy and neglect. So at the end of the day, hey, it is what it is. I don't think I'll be changing the country as a tiny business owner anytime soon. But with that, we get to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. If this was something that you've had experience with or maybe are going to experience in the future, be sure to subscribe to learn how I deal with it all. Also, if you're interested in starting your very own e-commerce business in Germany, be sure to check out the videos I've made on the topic before right over here. Well, that's it from me. I'm gonna go ahead and wish you all a great day, and as always, take care.